What is up, everybody? This is DiMattei here, and you can find me on Instagram in person at markedarts. That's MARKD_ARTS. And this video is dedicated to 5 tools that I find underrated, especially because they are actually some of my favorite because they are underrated and seem to be. I don't see many people using them. I feel like some people don't even know they exist, whether they know they exist or not, though they are very useful, and I find a lot of use for them. So I'm going to share that knowledge or that insight, at least why I like them a lot for the reasons that I design. So the first tool is going to be the group selection tool. Now the group selection tool is kind of a play on the direct selection tool that you might know, the white arrow, but if you actually hold down the white arrow, you get the group selection tool. And if you didn't know, you can, while holding down, you can drag your cursor over this little arrow here, and it pops it out right here, just like that. And I usually keep it over here because this is some of my favorite stuff to use. But to understand the difference between the white arrow and the white arrow with the plus, the group selection tool, so the primary use I get out of it is that if I have a finished shape, this is all one group, so this is all one compound path, or if I have a clipping mask with many shapes and many groups, and obviously the direct selection tool and the group direct selection tool are able to bypass groups and clipping masks to select objects. So if I were to take my regular direct selection tool here and I try and click on this point here, I can individually select points, or I can individually highlight points here, as opposed to the regular black selector direct selection, it would select the entire thing. But why do I need the group selection tool? Well, the group selection tool will select any closed path, such as the compound negative space. So instead of just selecting one point at a time, and to also note that if you can't double click to mass select all these points. You see how none of these points are getting selected? So why don't we watch what happens when I select at least one click on the negative space and the clipping mask. I now have selected the entire path right here in the negative space. And what I could do now is I can copy and paste that, and now I can get this shape out like that. Or what I can even do is I can copy by hitting Control C and then hitting Control Shift V and then paste in place, and now I can color this whatever I want, just like that. It's pretty useful. And just to also note, I'm going to delete this and then delete this really quick, that if I were to double click, it will select the entire thing, just like that. You see that? So if I click once, if I double click, it'll select the entire thing. So just to prove my point even further, I'm going to expand this word here, just like this, so I can get them to be closed shapes, because expanding is going to get rid of our live text and make it closed shapes. So now I have all of this text here. So now if I take my group selection tool and I want to, let's say, select the inside of the E, just like that, I could just click it and pull the compound path right out. Another helpful thing, I'm just going to quickly whip this up here. I'm going to just make a few different squares, all at different colors so we can see what they are, just like that. And I'm going to group them, right? And then I'm going to put that group into a clipping mask. And by doing that, I can you need a shape to overlay your group or whatever shapes you want to put in the clipping mask. You shift click the shapes under it and then you hit Control 7. So now they are bound to that exterior box that I've made, and the box goes away. It's invisible. That's our bound. So now if I have the direct selection tool, I could also grab my shapes just like this, move them around just like I would with the group selection tool, just like that. No difference there. And now if I double click these shapes, I can move them around within the clipping mask whilst not ruining the clipping mask or moving the clipping mask. You wouldn't be able to do that with the direct selection tool. I can't double click these shapes and see I'm not selecting all of them. So I don't have to ruin my clipping mask. I don't have to ungroup them. And by proving to not ungroup them, let me release this clipping mask. And now you can see that they're still within the group. I'm going to re-clipping mask it. I can double click this and move the group without ungrouping in the clipping mask, without moving or ruining the clipping mask. It's very important that this tool is used when you are dealing with a lot of masks and a lot of shapes and groups, because the regular direct selection tool, you might select a point, or you might accidentally pull a line, you might pull lines by accident. So the group selection tool is going to get rid of that problem for the most part, and it allows you some different functionality around different types of shapes. The next tool I want to go over would be the gradient mesh tool, one of my favorite tools. I've gone over this tool numerous times on many different videos because it's one of my favorite, but pretty much I'm just going to make this pretty quick. But the gradient mesh tool is a more advanced gradient tool. So you would have, you know, your shape, and then you can apply your gradient to the shape, right? And you can take your gradient tool and then you can mess around with the gradient like this, and you can add different colors to the gradient, yeah. But you're very limited, you know, you only have linear or radial, or it's just, there's not many options within our color preferences you can change, or you're very limited with this gradient. Yes, you can get away with it a lot of times, but there's going to come a time where you're going to have to redraw something and recreate it accurately, or you want to be a little bit more realistic, or you just need more color tones in varying places rather than in a linear form or a circular form. So what we do is we use the gradient mesh tool. So now you can have basically different colors on any type of point across your gradient mesh. You can make an array, you can make a grid of points, make a shape, and each of these points can just be different colors in itself at any really area you assign a point inside this shape, which is very, very unique, very helpful. And if it's not the easiest tool to actually use to make this candy cane shape work like this, is actually something you should go watch another tutorial video I have on, because there is a right and wrong way to use this tool. But if you master this tool, it can be very handy and very technical, and it can make your art stand out a lot more. So moving on, I'm going to go over the smooth tool. The smooth tool is also one of my favorite tools, and it's a pretty simple tool to explain. But if you're drawing a path and you realize you have all these kinks and all these uneven turns because you were doing it fast, or maybe you didn't see, or whatever the case may be. And before the smooth tool, you would have to go back with the direct selection tool, and you have to edit the handles like this, and you have to smooth it out. But now what we do, I'm going to undo that. Now what we do, we could just take the smooth tool, and we could just hold down and run our fingers basically across, run our mouse across, and it actually will shape out, and you can keep clicking and do this, and it will completely smoothen out your intended line. So look at our new line, much smoother, no kinks. Let's go back, let's go all the way back. Look, that's our original line. Let's redo, much smoother. So that is a very helpful tool amongst any type of drawing that you're doing in Illustrator. And we're gonna go on to the next tool, and that would be the anchor point tool. The anchor point tool is essential in drawing gradient mesh, and it's also essential in changing the direction of Bezier curves that experience this problem. So if you've ever been drawing with the pen tool and you're trying to move the handle, and now you're moving both sides at the same time, you see that? You don't want to do that. Let's say you only want to mess with the left side, or let's say you only want to mess with the right side. And you can't really do that right now. Everything I do is moving both sides. But now with the anchor point tool, watch what happens. I can now do whatever I want with this. I can now readjust in any format I want. And if I click this, it'll actually make it a corner. If I click this, it'll make it a corner. And if I click it again or hold it down and move it, it'll make it back into a curve. So this is how you convert, hence the name, convert anchor point tool. This is how you convert your points to any type of corner or Bezier curve you would like. Very essential in shaping gradient mesh. And it's just a tool that you should just use in general to fix that problem if you didn't know that was the way to do it. So moving on, one last tool I like to go over is the Mighty Blend tool. Now, some people are like, oh wow, the blend tool. You can do some pretty creative stuff with the blend tool, and I actually particularly use it for color palettes, and that's why I have this demo set up here. So what I could do is I could take the blend tool, which is down here, and I can basically click this and then click a new shape, and it will blend blue to red, like make a gradient, a linear gradient. Now another cool thing you can do with the blend tool, before I move on to the other squares, so you can, like, let's say take this, turn it like this, and then you could take the blend tool again and you can click and click, and then you can do all these cool little things. And if I expand this, right, and make this a non-blended shape, I now have all these different colors and things and millions of tones. And you can also do things like this. Watch, if you make a square and make another big square, let's change the color, and you could just take that, and then we take the blend tool, click, and look, cool effect, right? Not something you can do normally with the regular grading tool, or you would have to use the mesh tool almost to make this, which is kind of interesting the way this worked out. Other things we can do is we can actually make color palettes. So if you click this and hold down Alt, and then click the white, you get this menu here. And you can actually change the way it blends. So you can do different types of blending patterns, such as the orientation. You can also do specified steps, which is how I do my color palettes. So each step would be a color tone or a hue that we can pick from. So if I did, let's say 5 steps, right? Okay. Did it not work? There we go. I clicked it again, I clicked the black, and now we have basically a grayscale, black to white. So now I can take my eyedropper and I could select all these little tones when I'm drawing and make swatches. Very helpful. And again, you can do all these cool stuff. You can just play around with the blend tool. It's a nice, unique way to blend colors in steps. Or look at that, that's a pretty cool effect, right? So that's pretty much it, guys. It's just a quick overview of 5 underrated tools in my opinion, and some of my favorite tools that I use on a daily basis. I hope this opened your eyes to some more potential and workflow that you can incorporate into your design. And my name is Mark DiMattei. You can find me once again on Instagram at markdarts. That's MARKD_ARTS. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Let me know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe. See you next time.